Hello and good evening and welcome to the live stream tonight. My name is Colin Matthews and I am an intuitive counselor and certified medical intuitive. And this is the work that I do. This is a live stream tonight that I'm excited to come to you to share conversation. The topic tonight is the difference between psychic and intuitive counsel. And so if you would like a reading during the show or during the live stream, please just email me at this address here, which I'll be able to see and know that you are on the looking for a reading during the live stream, which I'd be happy to share. So yeah, without further ado, we'll get into the topic for this evening, which is the difference between intuitive and psychic guidance. Okay, so let me just get over here to the definition. So why did I choose this topic of psychic versus intuitive guidance? And this is largely based on something that I have seen and I encounter in my work, which is that some of the people come to me looking for psychic support, and some people come to me looking for intuitive support. And so my intention is more to do with the people and the intentions that they come to me with rather than what the offering is, whether the person is offering psychic or intuitive counsel. But I think it is important to distinguish between those two different definitions for psychic and intuitive counsel. So important consideration to make between the two. So what are the definitions for psychic and intuitive? Well, according to the dictionary that I pulled up online, psychic relates to faculties or phenomena that are apparently inexplicable by natural laws, especially involving telepathy or clairvoyance. It's not a very robust definition of psychic, but to me, the reason I shared this is it has this phenomena, like it's inexplicable and it's otherworldly in some way, shape, or form. And as an intuitive counselor, intuitive clarity and guidance is nothing otherworldly about it whatsoever. It's a very tangible, felt, concrete way of interacting with the world. It's spacious, but it's not otherworldly. And so at least the way that I experience it. So from psychic, there's a quality of kind of otherworldliness, and I would say special. Whereas intuitive, this is the definition, once again, I don't think it's spacious completely, is using or based on what you believe or what you feel to be true, even without reasoning. So it's kind of instinctive. And well, that's somewhat true to my definition of it, that intuitive guidance is based on feeling and on being aware of something without conscious reasoning, but there's something more accessible about it. It's not otherworldly. It's more like an instinct on some level. So those are the difference. Now, these are my definitions of psychic versus intuitive. And for me, the way that I'm defining psychic and the points that I think are really important to be wary of in the psychic sphere is psychic, for me, often denotes someone holding power over you, or someone possessing something that you don't possess, or someone having access to something that you don't have access to. I go to the psychic because they know stuff I don't know. I go to the psychic because they have this ability that I don't have. And I'm wary of that approach, and we'll get into that, why that is this evening. Intuitive, on the other hand, my experience of it is it's something that I think we are all connected to, that we all have access to, and that we're all able to hear. And when we receive intuitive guidance, we allow ourselves to receive. So there's really, psychic has this hierarchical structure of the psychic has something you don't have. Intuitive is more community-based. It's what are you receiving? What am I receiving? What is each person receiving? And learning to cultivate that listening within ourselves. So hierarchical versus community-based. That's kind of the difference between the two there. And what does this distinction mean for you? And why do I bring up this whole topic? Well, to me, the important thing to consider is, why are you seeking guidance? Are you seeking answers? I don't like my job. Should I quit my job? I'm going to call my counselor to see if I should quit my job or not. And that's when you're seeking an answer. I want someone to tell me what to do. Or do you want help in getting clear? I'd like to quit my job. What are you getting on that? Like, what's your opinion? What do you see in my choosing to quit my job? Is that an empowered choice? Am I running away from something? Can you share more information so that I can discern for myself? So notice there's a big difference between the first and the second one that I talked about there. going back to the first example, do you want someone to tell you what you should do? Yeah, you should end this relationship. It's not serving you. Or do you want more information so you can make that decision? In this relationship, it feels to me like you've learned all there is to learn and it may be time to move on versus you should move on. And that's a really important distinction. And another way to say this, which to me, this gets down to the root core of the difference between psychic and intuitive guidance is, do you inherently trust in your ability to discern for yourself and have agency over life? Like, do you trust in yourself? Or do you distrust in your ability to discern for yourself and want to defer that agency over your life to somebody else? This to me is the crux between psychic and intuitive. Do you want to discern for yourself? Do you trust in your ability to discern for yourself? Or do you distrust and would you like someone else to discern for you? That's the main difference to me. So let's talk about that. And specifically, let's get at the shadow aspects of psychic guidance. Now, I'm not saying all psychic counselors embody this shadow or work into it, but this is a component or the shadow component of psychic guidance. And it's one that you fuel if you seek psychic guidance for these reasons. And that's that psychic guidance leverages your disbelief in your ability to discern for yourself. It's what it takes advantage of. There is a job if you can do something that no one else can do or doesn't have the ability to have within themselves. It creates a repeat. And that's a great way to tell if you're working with a health practitioner that really values health or values their profession. One that values health, their goal is to get you to not come back. Whereas if someone values the profession or the employment of what they're doing, they want you to come back because that's how they earn their living. And it's a nuanced point, but it's a really important one. And so the shadow aspect is that it wants to leverage that you hold disbelief, right? And so what's important in this is if you do invest in someone that has a power over you, you're giving your power away or your agency instead of being empowered. I need my counselor to tell me what to do. And I don't know if I've gone to intuitive counsel for years in my life, and there are times where I do feel really afraid or I feel overwhelmed, and I would love for someone to help me to decide. And if I'm being honest, sometimes I want them to tell me what to do. And that's when you give your power away. Nobody can tell you what to do. This is the principle of free will, in that we choose what we want to do in our life. And part of our work is about being empowered. So you're giving that power away if you want someone to tell you what to do. How do you overcome this? I got 2 affirmations for you. First one is, I trust in my inherent ability to discern for myself. You want to be able to hold the belief, I trust that I am able to discern for myself. If you're an I don't know person, oh, I don't know, should I quit my job or not? Oh, I don't know, it's this thing here. That to me speaks to an inherent disbelief in your ability to discern for yourself. And so the affirmation to overcome that is I trust in my inherent ability to discern for myself. Or I open myself to guidance in order to discern for myself the most empowered choice. We're not an island. We're born not alone in the world because we are meant to also receive support. This is actually one of the most powerful ones for me. I am staunchly independent in my healing process. I want to be able to heal and evolve and grow within myself. I love the independence that brings. So for me, sometimes, like when I hurt my back last week and I went to my osteopath, for me, that's always a very healing process because I get a chance to say, oh, it's not always all on me. There is support for me in this world. And so it may be powerful for you to trust in your ability to discern for yourself, or maybe powerful for you to open yourself to receive guidance, but not at the expense of your being able to discern for yourself. Those are 2 great affirmations. So now here's an interesting thing. As an intuitive counselor, and I wanted to share a little behind the scenes of what it's like doing intuitive counsel for people, is that it's both a burden and it's a risk, and it's worth it. So what do I mean by that? It's a burden and a risk. Well, first of all, people send me their name and their age. And with that, I receive information and then I share that with a person. That's not the typical way that we're used to sharing information with people in the world. It's not based on one-on-one interaction, hearing from, observing, seeing. It's strictly what it is that I feel and that I'm receiving. And In a way, that is a burden for me because it is so counter-logical to how we interact with the world. And so I find that part challenging. When I first started doing the intuitive counsel work, how do I know? And so I learned to trust what comes to me has value, and that's what I work to know. How is it a risk? Well, it's a risk because what if I share it to you, my information with you, and it's all wrong? I remember my first large public workshop I did, I think there was 12 people there, where I did a reading for each person beforehand. I sent it to all of them, I showed up, and then I thought, oh my God, what if I'm wrong? Here I am for an entire weekend workshop sitting in front of these people, and what if I've read wrong? It's a big risk. And thankfully, the risk paid off. I was accurate in my readings with people. It really supported people. And this goes to the point of why I do this. It's worth it because when someone only knows your name and age and they share information about what's going on in your world, that will often ignite or light something up in yourself. There's a recognition or an acknowledgement with that. And I've seen the offering that brings. I'm willing to take on the burden and the risk of sharing intuitive information because I see the reward, and I've developed this ability enough that I trust in my ability inherently to be able to do so. Now, here's a really important consideration, which is that, in my opinion, the best any intuitive, psychic, any counselor can say to you is, this is what it feels like to me. This is what it feels like to me. It feels like you're losing energy because you're worrying about acceptance with people around you. It feels to me like you are putting too much emphasis on parental thoughts, or parental judgments, what your parents might judge of you. I can say that's what it feels like to me, but as soon as somebody says, you're putting too much on this, or you're doing that, it's more accurate to say, this is what it feels like to me. I really get the sense that you are, but there's a difference of you are, and this is what it feels like to me. And that's an important distinction to get at, because in the psychic world, there is a desire to say you should do this or you should do that. And when someone says this is what you should do, at best, they're giving you their opinion. And opinions are fine. I've got no issues with opinions, but if it's an opinion alone, I would be, from a psychic who's telling you what to do, I would just be wary of that. That if we go back to this burden and risk and responsibility, it's challenging to say this is what is going on for you. That's a big risk to say that, because what if I'm wrong? I take the responsibility of that statement very seriously. And so just something to be considerate of. So what are some of my recommendations if you are seeking guidance from somebody who's either psychic or intuitively connected? First one is, I would think of guidance, all guidance, in the context of power. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, is the person who giving you guidance seeking to hold power over you? In other words, do you go to them because you want them to give you the answers, and they want you to come to them to get the answers because then they have something over you? Or do you go and see somebody because they empower you? They want to develop your agency, your ability to discern for yourself, your ability to trust in your internal guidance system. And that's really important to get clear on, because in this power dynamic, if the person is holding a power over you, which is a controlling strategy, versus empowering you, which is a giving strategy, it's going to have a significant impact on how the guidance is felt, received, offered, and how it works with you. So it's really important to think about that in terms of power. So why does power matter so much? Well, if you're giving your power away when you're seeking, and this is the reason that I did this live stream, is that sometimes I see people come to me who give their power away. Colin, what should I do? Tell me what to do. You're susceptible to be taken advantage of. It's interesting. One of my mentors and intuitive healers, Marisa Marin, that I've worked with for years, we had her once come to the yoga studios to do teacher training with us. And it was so hard to get her to come to the workshop because she said, I just don't like teaching publicly because when I get around people, they just give their power away. So this is a behind the scenes intuitive counsel. Oh, it's so frustrating working with these people. They give their power away. Versus, I love working with this person because they really want to understand within themselves so they can decide for themselves. So if you give your power away, you're susceptible to be taken advantage of. And then the other one, which to me is also really important, is you can create relationships based on codependency or dependency rather than being independent and sovereign. I need to go to this person to get an answer. If you've ever watched the fabulous Miss Maisel or whatever, the show about the woman comedian, her mother goes to see a psychic in the show. And it's so clear that she gives the psychic lots of money and the psychic tells her what she wants to hear. And it's a good exchange for both of them. It's what they both want. So, but that, I would call that a dependent or codependent relationship. So it's kind of a good example of that. And more importantly than anything, you were born to be empowered. You were born to live your potential in the world, your truth. And so life is seeking to empower you in that process. And you're going to delay that process if you give your power away when receiving guidance. So I love intuitive guidance. I seek it regularly in my life. It's so helpful for me to see blind spots, for me to look at things from a perspective of spiritual development. Incredibly helpful, but when it's seeking to empower me in my life. So here's some things that I would recommend for you to consider when you're seeking guidance from a counselor. Things to do. Does the person speak to you in absolutes? You should do this, you should do that. Or do they speak in potentials? Feels like this to me. Feels like you'd benefit from that. If they speak in absolutes, I would be wary. Second one, do you feel spoken to as an equal, respected, or uplifted? Is there, hey, how's it going? This is what it feels like to me. Or is there an air of power imbalance, like speaking over, like, oh, you're doing this, huh? Where you don't feel honored or respected. That's something careful to note when you're working with somebody. And a component of that is, does the person hold an air of special in their presentation or how they present themselves to the world? And this is something in our households that we do. Oh, that sounds a little bit like special. And what do I mean by that? Special is I have this ability. Welcome to my Intuitive Counsel live stream. I'm so glad for you to be here. I look forward to sharing the wisdom that flows through me and me alone exclusively to you on this live stream. That reeks of special to me. I don't recommend that. Do you feel empowered as a result of working with this person? Or do you feel dependent on them for advice? I went and talked to this person. They brought this stuff up and I'm not totally sure about that, but it's just so true. Some of the most significant decisions I've made in my life came after going to see an intuitive counselor where they said something, it resonated, and I made a significant shift in my life. And that was really helpful. Which, by the way, that's what I do. If you're looking for intuitive counsel, you can go to my website, colinmatthews.ca, book an appointment with me through that, and I'd be happy to share with you. Or if you are wondering if I'm the right person for you, write into the show, share your name and age with me, let me do a reading for you, and that may be helpful in helping you to discern. So that has served me in my life in significant life decisions, like whether I should sell my business or change my partnership structure or things like that. So it's been really helpful in my life. And this one is, to me, such an interesting one. Does what the counselor say resonate with you? I know I'm off track if I say, this is what it feels like to me. And they go, really? Oh, okay, that's strange. It doesn't feel like that. But that tells me that maybe I'm off. And if we go back early on to my definition in the show of what does it mean to receive intuitive counseling, it's something that we all have access to. So if I share something, the person's like, that really doesn't feel true. Maybe we have to sort it out to understand what I was onto, or maybe I'm off. Or maybe the person is in denial. I know also from my teacher, that was one of their great laments. What do you do when it just feels so clear and the person is in denial that this is going on? But does what they say resonate? That's a great way to discern if it's the right thing for you. These are things for you to consider in yourself. And in a way, to be honest, I think this is the most important component for you to be aware of. Why are you seeking guidance? Do you want answers, or do you want help in discerning for yourself? Be honest with yourself on that one. Do you want someone to tell you what to do? I know life is scary. And we go back to this risk-reward relationship I talked about earlier. One of the reasons people seek guidance is because they are scared. Life is scary. Life is challenging. We are constantly having to discern, and it's not always a straightforward process. And some people will leverage that fear as a power over you, and some people will understand that fear and work to support you. Right? So, but that's inherently trusting in yourself. That's something I really had to work to cultivate within myself, my ability to discern for myself. If you are having trouble discerning, you can lead with a question like that. Hey, I'm having trouble discerning, and can you support me in this regard? Can you help me to get more clear within myself? Make it clear, not can you tell me what to do? Can you help me to discern for myself? I would admire someone asking me that question. And if someone does not like that question, I would be wary. Ask yourself honestly if you trust in your ability to discern. This is a bit what I talked about before, but if you don't, I like to start with a prayer or an affirmation. I trust in my inherent ability to discern for myself. I trust in one of the biggest breakthroughs I had as a yoga teacher was when I first opened the studio, before I could get the depth of training that I wanted, I kept saying to myself, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with my students. And then I started to have a mantra. Everything I need to know is available to me in this moment now. And to me, what that mantra meant was I trust in my inherent ability to discern. And as soon as I said that, I started to notice people aligning in ways that wasn't serving their highest good, or people who were holding tension in places they could release. And when I learned to trust myself, that really empowered my ability to see the people in front of me as a teacher, and I think to be an intuitive counselor as well. So in closing, what are some of the key points that I brought up in this here? Well, number one, is your wanting guidance based on distrust in your ability, or is it in a desire for support in discerning? That's, to me, the foundation you want to get clear on. And if you don't trust in your ability, and be very cautious about seeking intuitive guidance, or if you do, make that really clear. I'm flip-flopping, I'm having trouble deciding, and I would like your help to discern for myself. I think that's really important. 2, part of the psychic realm or the psychic industry is based on the tendency that we have as human beings to give our power away. Just be aware of that. It's convenient for some intuitive counselors or psychics that you don't trust yourself because it gives them a job. That's not a job that I want, and it's not a job that I'd recommend that you give to other people, because no one can truly do that. You're always responsible for yourself, which is a really interesting thing to consider. And then finally, you're born to be the most empowered version of yourself. It's wonderful to seek guidance. I do, as long as it serves to support you on your empowerment journey, not for you to continue to hold yourself incapable of being empowered in your journey. Tell me what to do. And so that, to me, are some of the primary components of the conversation that we're having this evening. What about you? What do you think? Is there a difference between psychic or intuitive counsel? Have you had experience with psychics? Did you call Miss Cleo back in the 90s to see what she had to say to you? Or is this something that you just steer clear of altogether? I assume not if you're watching this far into the live stream, but I'd love to hear from you if that's the case. If you do want a reading, I've got a little bit more time. I do have one reading that I want to share this evening. But if not, that's wonderful too. You can email me between live streams. I do this every Tuesday at 7 o'clock. The topic I'm using for next weekend is going to be, what do you do when you disagree? What to do when you disagree. I'll figure out the exact language for that, but it's a really interesting topic, especially when you consider it through a nonviolent communication lens. So what do you do when you disagree? Okay, let's move here to this next reading that I've got. Let me just make sure I've got the right thing on screen. Yeah, I do. Okay, great. So this is for someone with the initials LS that wrote to me yesterday for a reading. When I tuned in, what it felt like to me was they were dealing with issues of regret. I saw patterns of second guessing, of questioning, did I do the right thing? Did I make a mistake? It reminds me of looking at your life. There are times in life where we look back and go, has what I've been doing up until now really been serving my highest good, or have I been making choices that don't work? So it's like a reflection energy, which is a really important thing to do in life. That can turn negative if you hold lenses of regret. Oh, I made mistakes. How could I have done this? And so it's important to look back. When you fall into regret, that's dangerous, because regret is out of your power to make change, as opposed to honoring or taking responsibility, which is being in your power. I wrote here, it feels like you're taking stock of your life and asking if you made mistakes. This is leaving a hollow feeling in your chest. And so you might feel like this felt like a sucking out sensation, rather than full in my chest, open in my heart, like a sucking sensation. I wrote here, can't take a full ease-filled breath. You also feel invested in potential what ifs. And what do I mean by what ifs? What ifs are like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well, what if this happens? Or what if this happens? So, we could be like, oh, I wonder what tomorrow will bring. Or what if tomorrow doesn't go well? And so you feel like there's a little bit of a what if tomorrow doesn't go well energy that's starting to happen. I would call that negative anticipation or expectancy. I get that this pattern of that negative expectancy is the strongest physical expression in your body. I couldn't access a feeling of deep ease in your stomach. It felt like a bracing. When you're in a negative anticipation, you're constantly anticipating and getting ready to brace. So it felt like you're doing that. And the phrase that I got for that was for you to make peace with where you are. And this is where I am. Okay, what do I do now? I'm going to let the past go. I want to learn from my mistakes, but I'm just going to let it go. What do I do now? And I got an affirmation for that. I'm proud of the decisions I have made, and I'm grateful for the learning in my life. It's a wonderful way to approach that. The next point's interesting. I feel the starting of a pattern of sternness or severeness in your perspective. I wrote here, less happy-go-lucky, and that's not, I don't mean that in a good way. Like when I felt that one, it felt like in a younger time in your life, you'd be like, oh, we'll try this or we'll try this. And then as you've matured or continued on in your life, it's gone more towards, well, will this work out? Like some, how, I don't know if you know how sometimes older people will get to be fuddy-duddies or something like that. I'm not saying you're a fuddy-duddy, but I just felt the beginning of a stern perspective. And so the next major point I got in that was a need to put regrets to bed. And if you can see that, and when I do a reading here, I get a little star. Oh, it's probably hard to read. The lighting is too bright. Anyhow, anytime I put a star beside something, I get the feeling that this is an important point. And so this is a star point, a need to put regrets to bed. Find compassion for why you made the decisions you made. Find forgiveness for when you weren't able to honor what you felt. This is part of the challenge in life and part of what I do as an intuitive counselor. We abandon ourselves. So many of us abandon ourselves in our life. We really want something, but we choose not to embody it because of judgments from other people, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of security. And so we will abandon those things. And so it's really important to be gentle with yourself as you go through life. You didn't do that because you or irresponsible, didn't care. You didn't know the power that you had to be strong in yourself. So find forgiveness for when you weren't able to honor what you felt. And when I felt that, I felt tears coming up in that. So when you actually really honor that aspect, some tears in that. And there's a level of self-acceptance in this that it feels to me like you haven't yet accessed. Like if you can really be like, I know that I did the best I could, and I forgive myself for all the places that I wasn't able to be in my integrity or stand in my truth or honor my deepest longing. It would be really helpful. And the final affirmations I got for you is I allow myself to enjoy the offerings of life, or I allow myself to enjoy the offerings that is life. I allow myself to enjoy. I allow myself to receive, to enjoy, to be fed by life. That's sort of what I was craving, that I wonder what will happen next. I look forward to being nourished by what life has to present rather than the negative expectancy. Oh, what if this happens or doesn't happen? And I like the last phrase. It's about making peace with yourself. So that was for LS. LS, I hope that was helpful and accurate for you. If any of you would like to have an intuitive reading, of course, you can email me or go to my website, colinmatthews.ca. Hope this has been a valuable live stream for you this evening about psychic versus intuitive guidance. Have a wonderful evening.